Mini episode 583 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by TV Howl, your home on the web for coverage of today's television scene and a look at the history of the medium as covered by big-time TV critic Adam Buckman. Follow them on the web at tvhowl.com.
The FDH Lounge. You'll want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
All right, everybody, welcome to the FDH Lounge. This is part 3B of Kyle
Easy
Ross's
for you to say.
History of Royal Rumble anthology. Just to break kayfabe here, this is the second take that I have in starting this thing.
Can we start over?
Yeah.
We're live, brother.
Not that anybody cares, but this has been a super, super long week for me. My brain is fried. I'm staying awake doing these just off of energy drinks right now. So, yeah, I mangled what part of the series this was at the outset. 1997, Part 3B. The fact that, again, we're resetting that this is the third
Blame it on Kyle blame it on Kyle for
thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, for taking what was supposed to still be put the end of part 2 and starting a new part.
So I'm going to blame it on that conveniently.
If you're confused and skip 1996, which is part 3A for those keeping score at home, we explained it there that we have confined it 93 to 95 as their own set.
Yep.
And 96 now to 99 will be part 3 because of the Monday Night Wars era.
This is the wartime set. I like to think of myself in this anthology as your wartime consigliere as we're going through this. And again, 90. The other thing too, we always mention this as well. Background on the Rumble, history, how it came to be, whatever, thoughts behind the Rumble, go check out 1A 1988. We set it all up there. We took about 10, 15 minutes in setting all the groundwork there, but we're up to 97 now. We are on the very cusp of the Attitude Era. By the next year, we will be in it. The 98 Rumble I consider to be the first card of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, and which originally we were going to do Attitude Era, but I just think that I don't know, the way I framed it. After you and I talked the last time and I framed it, I just felt like doing 96 to 99 was the way to do it.
Well, we're building towards it. We're on the verge. This is the last one before it.
Yeah, I'm going to...
There were faint signs in 96. The signs are much stronger this year of what's to come, no question.
Yeah, but let's be honest here.
Mm-hmm.
We are calling part 3. There's a war going on, right?
Yeah.
That's, of course, the Monday Night Wars. Nitro launched in late 95. It's neck and neck at the beginning. And then WCW, after years and years of stupidity, finally hits in the summer of 96 with the New World Order, the Hulk Hogan heel turn.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time since Vince Jr., I know he doesn't like being called Jr., only Stephanie can get away with that.
Yep.
Had taken over and did the national expansion. By the time we rolled the 1997 Richard Z. Morris, the WWE is losing the war. They are not the top promotion in North America.
Right.
Or should I say in the United States? Because Mexico, down in, AAA had its run there in the mid-90s when you could maybe argue that it might have been a little bit better. But whatever, that's a different podcast for a different day.
That's a great point. First one ever where they're not on top. 96 was the first one ever where it wasn't a clear-cut number one.
Yes, but it was back and forth. It was pretty even. But make no mistake about it. As we roll into Royal Rumble 1997, I was much more into WCW. I can't speak for you at this point. They were coming off a wildly successful Starrcade show. Look, let's give the Devils their due. Hogan and Piper, they drew a hell of a number there.
Yeah.
And while the numbers, meaning the TV ratings, don't support what I'm about to say, I thought this was the period, late 96 into early 97, where WCW was furthest ahead of WWF, at least creatively. I know that TV rating-wise, things got further and further apart as 97 went on, but WWF really lacked a long-term creative vision at this point, and it showed here.
Yeah, you're right about that.
It showed. WCW, they clearly found something that worked with the NWO. If you go back and watch that time period, logical booking, big matches, lot positive momentum, guys getting over. It was just like, I don't even remember watching Raw a lot during this time period, late 96. I think I first started getting, I always like to give these personal sides. Here.
Okay.
You gave a personal side earlier about what's going on in the present day. Me and 96, I think that this is when I started working. I had turned 16 in 96, and so I was missing Raw or something like that. And I didn't really miss much, I don't think, in late 96 and early 97. So...
Well, I will mention this as well then.
Did it surprise you that I was working?
During this period of time.
Because of what? Why? Because I'm a liberal?
You said it, not me. Well, I will tell you this, and this goes back the late lamented Cleveland Athletic Club. During this period of time, in the very early days of a good old Ricky Morris, I was the club pro down there in the bowling center.
That's Richard L. Morris, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I was the club pro in the bowling center, so I had to be down there to supervise the men's bowling leagues. Yeah, I was.
You were a club pro in a bowling center?
I was.
I didn't know that about you.
The 15th floor of the Cleveland Athletic
Have you ever
Club.
rolled a perfect game?
Just one sanctioned one, yeah, because I haven't been bowling in a number of years.
Sanctioned one?
Yeah, I've bowled another one or two or three in practice, but yeah, one sanctioned one. I got my ring.
I got to get you bowling against my buddy Nick Fletcher. He bowled, I guess, what's an unsanctioned one. We just went out drinking, and he did it.
Okay. Oh, nice. Well, I'll show you the 300 ring after we turn the mics off here. But anyways, so
is that next to your battle bowl ring?
Nice. So I would, on Monday nights, I'm supervising the men's bowling leagues. I would sneak down to the men's locker room on the 9th floor from the 15th floor and watch a little bit of Nitro.
I was going to say, I hope this isn't going where I think it is.
No. It was cleared out.
Okay.
I'm watching Nitro down there. And then I started to work up the guts once in a while to try to turn the TV in the bowling center there. And some of the guys would hassle me, sometimes not. And the one guy would always give the same story about how he took his kids to WrestleMania in '85 and at the front row to watch it on closed circuit. And is this stuff still around? I remember that sticking in my head.
Very interesting. I remember not missing Nitros, though. Didn't they, replay it or something? But that makes no sense because I was in school.
Yeah, they replayed it in midnight, I think, or right afterwards.
I don't know. Who knows?
That's kind of weird.
You know me. You joked about the reason I'm scatterbrained. And I said, no, that's not why it is. I'll tell you the reason I forget what the hell I was doing in 96, 97. Yeah, that's why it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we've established through bizarre personal stories that the WWF was second in the Monday Night Wars at this point and was for the first time number 2 in the national pecking order.
Yes.
So let's get our damn focus back here.
Okay.
So how do they respond? They being WWF. Well, one, and this is the positive, they booked a really big show here in 97. They booked the Alamo Dome in San Antonio.
Sean was the hometown boy.
By the way, you watch this, you watch the build-up, you watch the promotion, how they promoted it. That whole weird period from 10 years ago or whatever it was, when they would just beat guys in their hometown all the time,
right.
It makes it all the more frustrating.
That's true.
Because is there a more reliable angle? And look, I'm not saying that, I remember Bob Holly got that faux one-day IC title reign, or that 1 week IC title reign was held up because he was wrestling in Mobile or something. I'm not saying the guys on the lower card who have no, you don't know where they're from, all of a sudden start winning every time you pass through. But a star should, this shows, the hometown angle, when done right, is great.
Absolutely.
And it was done. And look, Shawn Michaels is not the biggest star of all time.
Right.
But this was done right. And this was a monster house they did. Now, it was some smoke and mirrors, and Eric Bischoff made fun of him for, the use of coupons, I believe. But, this was the second highest attendance.
6477.
Pardon me.
Okay.
Third highest attendance ever for a WWF show up to this point.
Okay.
Only behind WrestleMania 3 and SummerSlam 92.
Interesting.
So
second one domestically then.
Yeah, second domestically for North America. The number of pay-per-view buys was slightly down from 96. We talked about that at the very end. But, did it feel like a big show, though?
No.
I see.
I didn't think so.
I think it was a show in a really big arena.
Right.
But you know how WrestleMania in the present day, even no matter how bad the booking is,
right,
it still has an aura of being a big deal.
Right.
Just because of all the production and the venue and stuff.
Right.
This had the venue, but it still felt kind of like a company that was not on fire.
Well, and there's something I'm going to mention also, too, that I know isn't as important to you, but it kind of took me out of it. But you were talking about how it's a lost art as far as booking the hometown guy and everything like that. I think we all think to this day one of the great heartwarming moments ever as far as pulling this off, Backlash 04 in Edmonton there. Wasn't that? That's something to this day I think that we think about and we treasure that moment. Don't we, Kyle Ross?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I'll tell you what. For 3 years, that felt warm and fuzzy. And,
that's true. Yeah,
and I'll tell you what. Since if he's referencing Chris Benoit, people. But you know what?
Here's the thing, though. Around the edges.
Here's the thing, though.
But it was done. In all seriousness, that was done
at the
right.
time. Was done probably. Yeah. Canadian Stampede was done well.
Right.
I mean, look, like I'm not saying that I'm trying to think who's that Dolph Ziggler needs to
I was at TLC in December. He went over for the IC title in Cleveland. That was a great moment.
And that was okay. You're right. I'm not saying, but I
Best
was saying,
match of the night.
I wasn't saying that they should have brought Brock Lesnar in and put Ziggler over him, in Cleveland. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
The fact that they always were beating guys, like JR was always humiliated. And again, JR's not a really performance announcer, but the fact that he was always humiliated in Oklahoma City. And wasn't it Booker T that every time they went through Houston, would lose?
Right.
So I mean,
or get reminded that he's a felon or something like that.
Yeah. It was like, Booker T, the hometown guy. Oh, look, he just job clean.
Yeah. Well, here's a funny thing too. I mean, and obviously I mentioned Backlash 04 tongue in cheek, but that might have been just about the last time because fast forward 2 years when they were doing the main event program with Edge and Cena at SummerSlam in Boston. Edge goes over. Toronto the next month, Cena goes over. They did it the
not to get too far off the beaten path here.
Right.
That was a unique dynamic though, because Cena was supposed to be the face, but he was not really cheered in either of those matches.
You're right.
Which was weird.
Well, especially not Canada.
Yeah. But anyway, so
the other thing about the Dome, and this is what I wanted to mention too. This doesn't matter as much to you, but it does to me. Mic'd horribly. The acoustics were horrible. It didn't sound like it was 60,000. It sounded like it was 6,000, and that took me out of it, Kyle. It just does.
Well, obviously the company's grown significantly since that time.
Right.
And there's been such an emphasis on production.
Right.
I think, again, that's, this was a company that was desperate just to... They just wanted to have a show in a really big arena.
Right.
And with Shawn Michaels challenging Sid for the world title, and Shawn Michaels being from San Antonio, and the Alamo Dome being in San Antonio, it was there to do.
Yep.
And, they were going to be like, you know what? Hey, we worked a big arena. We drew a big house.
Mm-hmm.
If the production, we didn't know, obviously, and they probably didn't know at the time. They were probably scared for their lives. If production values get infinitely better from here on out, so be it. They were doing it. But so the Michaels thing, he lost the title to Sid.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get back to this.
Yeah.
He had lost the title to Sid at SummerSlam. He obviously, as we talked about...
Survivor Series.
Pardon me. Survivor Series, yes. We talked about...
Should have lost at SummerSlam to Vader, but that's another story for another day.
Originally booked to, I believe.
And
he
until he threw a tantrum.
Complained his way out of it.
Yep.
We talked about, in our last part, 96, the inevitability of him going over WrestleMania. He obviously did. There were some pros and some cons to his title reign.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the house show business was up. TV was not good. He was generally the lone highlight of every pay-per-view with his matches. So he loses to Sid, and they ripped off the November to Remember ending, I think, pretty bad with the camera angle.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this rematch set up with him and Sid. And interestingly, the Survivor Series match is better than this one. Shawn was sick here. And
they kept saying he had the flu, so that was for real?
Yes, it was. He was legitimately sick, and something tells me if he was to job the title here, he might have vomited once or twice in front of Vince McMahon.
Right.
So no, he was legitimately sick. I believe this is also the match where Sid shit his pants. Just for those keeping score at home.
I don't think that was the case, but you're making me in a weird way want to rewatch this just to see if it was.
I thought it was, or was that WrestleMania against Undertaker?
WrestleMania Undertaker. Yeah.
I apologize that I do not have my Sid shitting matches noted properly. I am sorry, but I think it's funny that because him being sick is the reason this thing only went 14 minutes.
Okay.
So
I wondered why they were pushing that, especially since he was going over. But so clearly they were pushing it like subconscious, like, hey, folks, if this match sucks, here's why.
Yeah, well, match-wise, him being sick obviously didn't help.
I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a pretty good match.
Really? I thought it was, for Michaels during this period, was extraordinarily subpar, I thought, even with the weak opponent. But I thought it did play into the whole hometown thing. He's sick, and he's in his hometown. The crowd heat was tremendous.
It was.
The crowd heat for this was...
to the extent you could hear him, again, with the crappy miking.
I thought this... Although the match itself wasn't good, I liked the way it was booked. It drew a big house. I have no problem with... And plus, Sid is just a bad champion.
Let me ask you this, because Sid... And maybe this goes to their booking plans at the time... Sid, I thought, in watching this, was oddly protected. Had Michaels down with a choke slam, but the ref was out of position. So they left him an out.
Well,
I mean,
we're going to get into how
you mean so much for this being the blow-off of the feud.
We're going to get into how wacky the booking got in the 2 months that followed in a little bit.
Right.
I don't believe that at the time Vince had any intention of putting the title back on Sid. That was a knee-jerk move.
Okay.
When he did. Because obviously Sid does get the title back with just all the craziness that follows with Michaels losing his smile and such. And ratings kind of going down and Vince panicking. But so, yeah, I don't think he was being protected because they knew they were putting the title back on him. I think it was just, they started doing those finishes a lot.
Right.
And that brings me to the second response of WWF being second in the U.S. pecking order in terms of wrestling organizations. They responded by, I think we can agree that we like the Big Show, the attempt at a Big Show atmosphere, and they did draw a big house. But the second response they had was changing the finish of the Rumble. And this, it's funny, the Monday Night Wars are on us, and you're also getting the rise of the Internet. And the company, in both companies, not really knowing how to deal with, this information's out there. Some people know what we might be doing.
Right.
And I cannot stress enough how changing your booking because some people on the internet may have figured out where you're going is so stupid.
Right.
Just for a shot, just to do shock value. And look, in the end, this kind of all works out, so we can't be that critical with the Rumble. But here, by all accounts, and you've read Brett's book, so I assume you can back this up.
Yeah.
The plan was, and one half of it went to followed script with Shawn regaining the title here, and then Brett was supposed to win this Rumble, go on, challenge Shawn. That's why WrestleMania was called Heat.
Right.
And Brett was going to get his job back from the previous year, basically.
And basically be part of a trilogy, because he was eventually going to put over Shawn at the end of the feud and reestablish him subsequently. Here's the thing, though, in looking at this, and
funny how that played out.
Well,
funny how that played out, because you know what?
Shawn got it back eventually.
Shawn got the... Yeah, well, no, he won the second match. There was
true.
no trilogy.
That's true.
He just won the second match.
Yeah, if you... Pay-per-view, if you count 92 Survivor Series,
not.
which
that
nobody does.
No, we're not.
All right. Well, that makes sense. But I've heard of another school of thought of it was always intended to be in the main event, Sid and Undertaker with Brett and Shawn in the semi-main working a hair match. Loser loses their hair or something like that, and that was the reason Shawn begged off, was because he wasn't even going to be part of the title match, that Vince's big man fetish had returned, and that Vince didn't go that direction because of Shawn crapping out. Shawn crapped out because Vince was back on the big man
Sid
kick.
did not crap out, though, until WrestleMania
That's
established.
True.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But anyway, literally.
But that's...
See, I think at this point, though, in the Rumble, I'd always understood that the plan was Shawn Brett for the title.
That's what we thought, right?
Now, afterwards, ratings dropped a little bit, and that's when Vince was like, "Oh God, we can't have these little guys on top." And,
Okay.
And he wound up going with Sid Taker, and Shawn losing his smile, just helped, only kind of helped that, I guess, with Vince's thought process.
Well, here's the thing about that, though. I teased this at the end of when we were talking about the 96 Rumble, when you were talking about that it did a higher number than 95 and it did a higher number than 97 as far as buy rates. My theory, which it sounds like you're not going to probably disagree with.
Total buys. There's always a difference between
total buys, yeah. Sounds like you're probably not going to disagree with my theory. My theory is, in 96, if you bought the Royal Rumble, you knew what you were getting. There was clarity of direction with the promotion. In 97,
you knew Shawn Michaels was going over. He was returning and he was going over. You didn't know it, but that's what you wanted to see.
Right. This was chaos theory, which to me as a fan, I kind of like a little more. I kind of like not knowing exactly what might happen. I like plausible deniability, but I think it's easier to sell clarity to the public than plausible deniability, isn't it? Do you agree with me?
Okay, it's always, with the benefit of hindsight, it's always easy to call something predictable.
Yeah.
Like, you do have to have some, what's the word I'm looking for?
Logic, certainly.
No, that's not the word I'm looking for. Like, doubt. Like, you can't have it be painfully obvious that no one will really care if it's just obvious. You do have to have some doubt. But when you look back at these things, at these different periods of WWE, the periods that do better is when you look back and say, "Oh, okay, they knew where they were going. You could see it." We'll talk about this a lot with 98 too. In this 97, look, this WrestleMania did the worst total number of buys ever, and it will never be. and it will hold that record forever.
Right.
They're never.
That's the floor.
Well, I should take that back. With the WWE Network, it's a whole different game. So
that's true.
But I'll say this. How's this for an addendum? They will never again have only 200. What is the number here? They will never again have only 237,000 people watching WrestleMania.
That's true. That's
they will never again.
True.
And to be honest, oh my God!
What?
Oh my God! Do you know WrestleMania did only by 7,000? So it's different. Someone actually did less buys than the Royal Rumble. That shows you how screwed up the build was for it.
I can believe it.
Remember when I was here at the condo last time, you and I were kind of previewing how we would handle these shows, and we couldn't remember, back to your point here to bring things back full circle with Vince's big man fetish and what was the plans, what was supposed to be the title match. We were having such a hard time figuring it out.
Right.
That it speaks to the chaos. So what happens is, what winds up happening, and we'll get back to the Rumble in a second, because there is one major positive coming out of the show, and it's the unintended rise of Steve Austin. Stress the unintended.
Right.
So Shawn loses his smile. And forfeits the title.
Right.
And it then goes to the winner of a Final Four match, which was supposed to be the follow-up to the BS finish of this Rumble.
Yes.
Where they did the screwy finish. And that was between Austin, Brett, Taker, and Vader. And Brett winds up winning that and dropping it back to Sid. But the original plan, I believe, was for that to be the number one contender. It was. And Shawn was going to drop... Because there was that Raw Thursday came before the Final Four, right?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
That's where Shawn forfeited the title.
But he was booked to lose it anyway.
In that match, on that night to Sid?
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't think there was going to be a world title match.
Interesting.
On that show, was there?
Well, they had done that before. Remember, the previous October, Shawn did not defend the title when he did the Buried Alive in Indianapolis. I'm
struggling to remember this. So Sid was going to be, I don't know when Vince got cold feet, but it was sometime after the Rumble.
Right.
And he goes back to Sid, and was Taker then just going to, I'm wondering how they, had Sid won the title at Raw Thursday instead of the couple Raws later or whatever, after the Final Four when he beats Brett. Brett's got the one-day reign or whatever. I wonder who was supposed to go over then in the Final Four match. Was it going to be Taker?
Taker, probably, yeah, because that would have set up The main event. Well, it's interesting that in looking at this year, because there's a funny thing that JR said that I made a note of just because I thought it was funny, but I think
Hold
in
on.
terms
There's
of...
something...
Okay.
You called him JR. We should point out that this is the debut of the JR character.
Good old JR, yeah.
They finally got him to put on the cowboy hat and be good old JR.
Yeah, they did. Jim Ross, he said something that I thought was kind of funny, but it ties into what we're talking about here, that this is a year that in its own way, we've talked previously about the chaos in the promotion, about how it changed from the beginning of 92 to the end of 92. Same with 93 to the beginning to the end of 93. Nobody exemplified that better than Shawn Michaels. This was 11:59 of the Shawn Michaels babyface Jose Lothario era. This match was it. This was the end of that era.
I don't think
Shawn
Jose
Michaels.
Lothario was ever really heard from again after this show.
I don't think he was. But here's the funny thing. JR during the match, and again, Shawn wrestles this complete hometown babyface match. End of the match, JR says, "This is a young man with a lot of class." And I'm just flashing forward in my head to about 8 or 9 months down the road, the interview in the ring where he stuffed his shorts with the duct tape and he's putting his crotch in JR's face. So how quickly things would change. This was the end of pure babyface Shawn, and by the end of the year you have DX Shawn.
Which, was a total 180.
Complete. Yeah, it was jarring to me in terms of this.
Back to what I said in 96, I thought he was kind of a lousy babyface.
He was. Well, I think you said that
He didn't work.
That was an off-air conversation we had.
Okay. Pardon me. Is this on? Is this microphone on, or are you tricking me?
We agreed. I agree with you on that.
I just think, and you had responded off-air again,
yeah,
that they sort of tried making Michaels fit kind of their mold as a champion. He did not work as a babyface. And what he brought to the table, look, like Brett, he was kind of a different champion from the previous year in that he was a worker.
Right.
But, the whole strip teasing and stuff, that was bad.
Well, and here's the thing,
and his promos were really corny. Like, you'd always be like, I don't know, just watch him. You'd always say, like, tough titty cacas or something like that he would say. And it was, like, really, like, that's not cool.
Everything with suffer and succotash. And he referred to his fans as the clique, which was interesting.
Well, that was a wink thing.
It was.
And it wasn't really... I guess it's like moderately amusing if you knew the play on words.
Here's the thing, too, though.
I don't think he liked that, by the way. I forgot. I think that was a Russo thing.
Maybe it was, but I'm gonna.
Who, by the way, was in the Billionaire Ted skits in '96, and I didn't mention that.
Yeah, and you, as you said, scripted himself with the best lines. But Shawn's bad babyface act, which was coming to an end on this show here. I'm going to make a macro point about their baby faces and about how they try to retrofit them to a formula that's bad. You and I disagreed about something during a previous wrestling webcast, and I feel like I've now been proven right when I said to you...
I disagree.
That... haven't even gotten to it yet. Here we go. That Brock Lesnar, if left to his natural devices, could be an excellent face. You're seeing it now. This Brock Lesnar as a face is not smiling Brock. It's not...
Oh, I've got it.
What?
Can I grab the brass ring
Go
right
ahead.
now?
Yes.
Because it's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you brought that up. And
yeah.
if I ever lamented Brock as a face, I'll admit I was wrong.
Okay.
But
okay.
I'll admit I was wrong because listen to this. It's so funny, and this is, again, different podcast for a different day. There was such as people went into WrestleMania 31, we're getting, again, off the beaten path, there was this debate, who's going to be the top face of this company? Is it Daniel Bryan or is it Roman Reigns? Well, it turns out it probably should be Brock Lesnar.
Right.
Even, despite whatever contract limitations, whatever, he has the possibility to be the number. He just, I think, is just a better choice for that role. Let's bring it back now. 97.
Okay.
All this debate. Who should be the top guy in this company? Brett or Shawn? Well, it turns out that it's the top babyface and no one ever made more money for Vince McMahon, was a guy who in 97 was a heel and you never would have guessed would be an effective babyface, and that was Steve Austin.
And this Rumble was a stadium show. Oh, full circle, 18 years before.
So let's go even further back. We talked about how they changed the finish. Brett does not win the Rumble.
Right.
They instead do a screwjob finish, which is lame, with Austin.
One of the worst explained finishes ever.
I see why. It was just lame. You should not do a screwjob finish in a Royal Rumble. Again, it's funny. I'm being the strict constructionalist here, and there's always reasons. There's always exceptions. I remember watching this live and being like, oh, wow, that and being like shocked by it. But when you watch it in retrospect, it just kind of comes across as bad.
It does.
So if you haven't seen it, the way it plays out is...
Are we going to yada, yada, yada the entire match and get to the finish?
I wanted to go to the finish, and then we'll work our way back.
Oh, okay. All right.
We'll talk about this, because
Okay.
there's some things I want to bring up.
All
And I'm
right.
sure some things you'd like to bring up.
Sure.
So Brett throws Austin out.
Mm-hmm.
It's down to the final 4. Actually, there's 5, because Diesel 2 is in. Your boy Glenn Jacobs, and trying another gimmick, is in there.
Also, Jim Ross, strangely enough, did not reference any of the past history between Bret Hart and Diesel.
Stop it. He was trying. Him putting the character over at all was nauseating enough. But anyway, so Brett throws Austin up, but the refs didn't see it. Austin
Right.
comes back in and wins the match by throwing Brett out. That's shoddy, in my
and
opinion.
Brett asks Vince at ringside if he's going to do anything about it. One of the first
He's
breaking the wall kind of moments there.
Yes. And Vince in his head replies, "Yes, Brett, I'm going to screw you out of this fucking promotion. Have a nice life." But but Austin, screwy finish aside, let's not take away from the fact he's the story. His unintended rise is the real positive coming out of this. He comes in early, and he kind of has this melding of the Ric Flair in 92, not as effective,
Okay.
and Diesel in 94 performance here, where, he's totally controlling the ring. He's in there for a really long time. He's, number 5? I just said
Clears it out, looks at a mock wristwatch on his
arm. He's the story.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing for him because, look, you and I think, have some maybe disagreements on the on the luminaries in this Royal Rumble. I think this is a weak Rumble again. It's slightly better than 96 overall as a match. I'm not sure if the star power is any better. I give it 2.5 stars as opposed to 2.25 for the previous year. But this still had some dogs. I know it's got guys who went on to be bigger stars, but that doesn't mean that they weren't in shitty gimmicks at the time. There are a ton of guys here, that not really a ton, but there are numerous guys here that just, it wasn't working at the time. Rocky Maivia, the Blue Chipper. Needless to say, he went on to better days. Jesse James is in this thing.
Right.
Hunter Hearst Helmsley was still not over here.
As JR said, Flash Funk, no relation to Terry.
That's funny.
That is.
By the way, we should point this out. This is kind of like in addition to him becoming good old JR here, this was sort of him also fine-tuning his style.
Yeah.
And he's a huge upgrade over the likes of DiBiase and Perfect from previous years.
Clearly, yeah.
I mean, the announcing here, while the company did not have focus, I thought I liked the Vince J.R. Lawler triumvirate.
It
always.
was an interesting 3-man booth.
Because-
Better than the 3-man booths of today, that's for damn sure.
Yeah. So I think that this overall, still weak on star power in the Rumble. Again, this Rumble does not go on last. Although for this, you can excuse it. Michaels drew the house.
Right.
I think this is still a weak Rumble, and you still have. You wouldn't guess that the Rumble would become as big as it was.
Right.
In preview, we're still a couple years away, more than a couple, from the Rumble firmly being kind of overtaking SummerSlam as the number 2 pay-per-view of the year.
And this is, and we'll mention some of these things when we talk about the undercard subsequently. This is, I think, the first time where undercard guys would also end up in the match, and further the angles that we saw earlier.
And that also underscores the lack of depth. And what really underscores the lack of depth here, not only are you using undercard guys, they brought in the AAA contingent. I
didn't have as much of a problem with that. And I give the match 2.25 stars up from 2 the previous year, but I did kind of somewhat like the match. But you got the AAA guys in there, Perroth, I'm probably mangling his name, Latin Lover, Cibernetico. Vince put him over a lot, by the way, interestingly. Latin Lover was in the match, Mil Mascaras.
Bruce Pritchard probably highlighted only Cibernetico in his notes for him.
Mil Mascaras with the great elimination.
Still being mocked to this day by JBL.
Really?
Yeah, JBL rips that remember in the Rumble? Every time someone did something stupid in the Royal Rumble, he's like, oh, it's not as stupid as Mil Mascaras eliminating himself. Not wanting to do a job. Mil Mascaras hit the bricks.
Why does he single out Mil Mascaras when in the same match they did an angle where Ahmed Johnson eliminated himself to go after Farouk,
They did a lot
furthering
of
an angle from earlier in the show.
They did a lot of that, guys, like not being eliminated. That was another thing that hurt this match.
Right.
Ahmed, eliminated himself, then he came back in
Crush
and
and
eliminated
Ahmed were 1
Farouk.
and 2. Yeah. Fake Razor was out next. He was thrown out quickly. It was the end of his push.
Interesting that Razor was just so, blink and you'll miss it, but Diesel was kind of like kept in at the end.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And by interesting, I mean I didn't understand why they did it.
I didn't either. That was kind of weird. Because this is a little bit later than we remember Diesel being a part of things there because, again, you tend to think of it as a wider gulf of time between the end of that and the beginning of Kane, which we would first see in October at the pay-per-view there, Bad Blood. Keep in mind, it happens the same calendar year. You go from Diesel to Kane, interestingly.
How long did these two knuckleheads last doing this? Was it until, April or something? Or
Well, you know what? Didn't they serve the end of it out in the dying days of Memphis? I think that's what they did. They just sent them to Memphis.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, when was the last time they were on WWE TV? I can't
Oh,
remember. Was it right after this, or did it
if
go
they
through
were
the
on
spring?
TV after this, it was blink and you miss it.
They had that
were
tag
done.
title match against Owen and Bulldog. Was that
In December.
Okay,
Yeah,
never
in
mind.
December.
I think it was after. By the way, we should talk about Owen and Bulldog. There was
Yes.
this aborted British Bulldog face turn in this.
He seemed much cooler. I made a note about this. His
Okay.
hair grew out, and they were pushing him. He seemed kind of funnier, like in his disgust with Owen, whatever. They were pushing him as like a guy that you could get behind and like.
Well,
which
because
was
he was
interesting.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I did not know this. I had to listen to a little Meltzer
Okay.
to steal this. The original plan, this shows you how funky all the booking got. Did you know he was supposed to wrestle Austin at WrestleMania?
Whoa.
Bulldog? That was
Okay.
Bulldog's opponent because Brett was supposed to work Shawn.
That's right.
And Bulldog was supposed to become a face. The Owen thing was supposed to dissolve. Now, obviously, none of that happened. Brett never got to work with Michaels. And then he called, because he went to go heel,
Yeah.
he called in a favor to Vince. He's like, well, you know what? You're not going to break up Owen and Bulldog anymore. They're going to be the new Hart Foundation.
Okay.
So it's funny, again, they were going in a direction with Bulldog. It never panned out. Things like that hurt.
Seemed like it could have worked because, again, at the time, like I said, I mean, Bulldog had an aura to him because I'll be honest with you, his from the. I was gonna mark it to the point when he turned heel, but I guess it started before then. His entire time of being back in the company there, he really kind of did nothing for me. I thought he was like really, really underutilized. In '97, he just like jumped off the screen at me like, wow, this is interesting. This is the path not taken. But if they had turned him, he seemed to be funnier. He seemed to be showing more charisma. Like I said, he had a different look with the hair growing out. Maybe it's just that he looks stupid with the short hair. I don't know. But Bulldog, that's an interesting counter history. If he'd gone face, I mean, it wouldn't have revolutionized the business, Kyle Ross.
No,
but
it wouldn't. To be honest, it was probably better that he didn't.
Better that he didn't.
He was better served as a guy in
But
the
it's
guy in
just
the Hart
funny.
Foundation.
Yeah, I made a note of it just because it caught my eye.
I'll tell you what I made a note of.
What?
There was like clock problem. You talk about like kind of like the minor league production in a big time stadium.
Right.
They had those clock problems. That was kind of Bush League. I'm sure Eric Bischoff was somewhere laughing.
You know what though? But again, that place to me, it looked like the world's biggest warehouse. It just didn't have that big of a stadium look to it. I thought. I don't know, the look of it, the sound of it, whatever. I just thought that it really sort of didn't come across well on
the
TV.
Positive, the best thing. Look, I didn't like the Lucha guys. I didn't think they meant anything. I think they didn't get over. San Antonio was not a great town for Lucha. Believe it or not,
The other
you
thing
think it was,
well,
but it really wasn't.
Let's get this out of the way so we don't have to cover this with the undercard because it's under the same banner of that too. There was also undercard Lucha action.
Oh,
Hector
yes.
Garza, Pedro Aguayo, and Connect defeated Jerry Estrada, Heavy Metal, and Fuerza Guerrera in a six-man match. Decent match, not great heat. The heat, like you said, should have been better. On paper,
Yeah, those guys
theoretically,
didn't. I guess
in San Antonio.
I didn't know this. Those guys didn't mean anything in San Antonio.
Apparently,
you think they did? But I remember watching this and thinking, I'm like, wow, Vince is copying WCW.
He kind of was.
And this was nothing compared to the kind of cruiserweight matches WCW was
They
doing
had
at the
the
time.
much better
I mean,
guys.
the stuff with Malenko and Ultimo Dragon and
Right.
Ray Jr. tearing the house down. This was not. I remember at the time I was like, wow. WWF is just kind of like sees this going on. And look, it never worked out. Their light heavyweight division,
right?
Even importing some of the guys from Michinoku Pro, which was one hell of a promotion,
right,
in Japan. They just never got off the ground. It was very clear that they never believed in doing a cruiserweight division. And it doesn't mean that cruiserweights stink. It doesn't validate anything. It was just, it wasn't for the WWF. So I thought the Lucha contingent didn't mean anything. I did obviously think the highlight of this match, and it built to it with Austin dominating, was, the face-off with him and Brett.
Yeah.
Which I was intended to be. That worked. Star Power picked up at the end. You had, Terry Funk, with a much better appearance than Dory Funk the previous year.
I'll grant you, yes.
Foley with Mankind, Vader, Taker. We had the first Austin Rocky face-off in this match.
Yes,
although
we did.
Rocky was not, needless to say, you never, again, like Austin, you never guessed he would be this revolutionary babyface for the company.
Right.
Although they were high on Rocky at the time, they were pushing him like this, this hot prospect.
Right.
When you watch this in '97 in '97 glasses, and look, it obviously happened with the Rocky sucks chance soon after. You're like, get this guy off.
Particularly when you see him in the next 2 years and what he materialized into. There's another thing, too. I mean, I feel like we are obligated to flag whenever we find the first of anything for any type of Royal Rumble thing, things that they would come back on. We had the first, as far as I can ever remember, what I would call gimmick spot in the Rumble. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Jerry Lawler.
Yes.
That was moderately amusing. They stole it a couple years ago, didn't they, with all three announcers?
All three,
which was horrible.
It was. It was pretty bad. But what was funny was
amusing.
He gets eliminated quickly and then goes to the amnesia gimmick of, next year I should enter in the Rumble, and he just keeps no-selling that he was in it.
Because it was Lawler and he had some history with Brett, and they used it at the right time,
right? Because
it was just Brett and Austin, and they wanted to just keep it being, so they just did it.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay here. It's one of those things that they're like, Vince probably looks back, oh, this was funny in '97, and it's gotten progressively less funny with every passing time they've used it. But yeah, you're right. That was the first kind of gimmicky spot where it's like, oh, who, they didn't really. It's interesting because in the early Rumbles, remember you'd have a Royal Rumble report with Sean Mooney or whatever, or Mean Gene, and they would go through all 30 guys in it. You kind of knew the 30 guys. Somewhere along the lines here, and I'm not sure what year it was, but it's before this, 97, they didn't really do that. They didn't really announce. So you sort of, and
it was somewhere in the downturn years, 93, 94, 95, it was in there.
Yeah, but it's just like, this guy's in the Rumble. You had guys who weren't even promoted being in the Rumble. That hurts the Rumble, by the way.
It does.
That hurts the Rumble.
Here's the thing, though. I think what it came to be was, and it used to be before 97, it was assumed if you were in an undercard match that you weren't in the Rumble, but the general assumption has been, with the size of the roster, if you're not in an undercard match, feel free to assume that guy is in the Rumble. I think they just started to fall back on that trope.
Yeah, I still think it'd be a good idea if they, because now what happens is, and it's we've seen this even through today, is when it's a guy that hasn't really been talking about the Rumble, you can laugh and roll your eyes at the honky tonk man claiming he's doing a promo saying he's gonna win before 89. At least it was a guy saying he's gonna win. Now it's a guy, these guys who haven't been actively promoted as participants come out and you're like, oh gee, just throw this guy out already. He ain't winning. It almost comes across as a waste of time. There were a lot of wastes of time in this Rumble, I thought. Sultan.
Yeah, Sultan.
Again, Jesse James, the real Double J.
Make a difference, 97 Sultan, basically.
Yeah.
But, as far as that goes, just to play counterpoint with you, out of the modern era, if they were to do that now, wouldn't it make the few guys who don't even make the cut for being in look even worse, like a Heath Slater, primetime players, whatever? My God, they weren't even part of the build-up for the Royal Rumble. That's the counterpoint, is that there's only going to be a handful of guys in the promotion.
They're worse when you're not mentioned.
Well, if nobody's doing I'm in the Royal Rumble promos, then nobody is also excluded from doing the I'm in the Royal Rumble promos. You know what I mean?
I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
Just a thought.
I think trying to get as many guys over as possible is better than just, we all know only a couple guys can win it. Don't make it so
Right.
obvious. So Austin wins here.
Yep.
Obviously does not challenge Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania.
Right.
Very interesting, given what we would see the next year.
Yep. True.
Yes.
True. We would get that, but a year later. I never realized that. Okay.
Yeah, we don't get that. We went with Sid Undertaker of all things. So, is there anything from the undercard that caught your eye
Briefly.
otherwise that we should talk about? Because we know that the top of the card was a total mishmash, total lack of focus.
Few
How about
things
underneath?
briefly. One, Todd Pettengill, the Michael Cole of his day, they were doing these annoying cut-ins in the crowd during the matches. I've never seen him do that before. He would be talking to some schmo or fake celebrity or whatever. That was kind of weird. Again, in terms of that old drinking game, things they couldn't do today. A post-match promo after they did the whole Farouk Ahmed thing as part of their big blood feud, and that ended up in a screw job finish. Farouk calls Ahmed an Uncle Tom. Things you couldn't hear today.
You know what? He did that a lot. I think like every Farouk promo around that time referred to as Uncle Tom.
Whoa. Also, in the package for the Farouk Ahmed match, it referred to Ahmed as the People's Champion. Talk about things that would be repurposed for other people.
He said that too, yeah.
Yeah. That was interesting.
Didn't he do? This was kind of the first time D'Lo Brown was highlighted. Was his debut? He was the guy who took the Pro River Plunge, wasn't he? To
I
the
think
table
he was.
afterwards.
Yeah, because when they were putting the Nation together.
I believe he was called That Guy.
Yes. I think that was the extent of his character development at the time. We teased this when we were talking about 96 with Goldust in an Intercontinental title match, this time around with Triple H. And, I mean, and this is sort of a half-joking reference that I have here as far as it goes with Marlena, that they seem to coincide Goldust turning face with Goldust turning hetero. It's a thing of all of a sudden, he's defending Marlena, she's my woman. The two went neck and neck, Kyle Ross.
And that's not cool. That's bad. Like I remember, do you remember? Like, there was like an interview. First of all, this did not work. Goldust is the challenger again. This time as a face against Triple H.
Right.
This feud sucked.
Right.
The only good that came of it was China. But here we had the cup of coffee from one Curtis Hughes as Triple H's bodyguard.
No, not his bodyguard. And again, talk about things they couldn't do today. He was Triple H's butler. Yeah. This whole crowd, this whole card was like
Jeffrey from the Fresh Prince. But no,
it was a decent match. I thought decent at best. Maybe
it was not. I didn't. It was okay. I mean, it wasn't like horrid, but
agree.
like it was just clearly not as over as it was being pushed.
Right.
And with that Goldust thing, don't you remember like that thing they did that thing on Raw when Jerry Lawler's like, this was their way of turning him face. It was really bad.
Yeah.
In retrospect, they were like, well, Jerry was like, aren't you? And Goldust's like, aren't I what? And Jerry was like, queer?
I remember that.
And Goldust is like, no. And it was supposed to like get this crowd pop.
Right. The crowd didn't believe it. It went against the way he'd been portrayed for 2 years. The crowd didn't believe it.
Even if that like did draw a pop, that's bad.
I'll agree with you.
Bad. That's bad. Hey, he's not gay. Yes, he's not gay. This is so great. He's not like that's. Leave that alone.
How bad is it when social conservative Rick Morris is agreeing with you? That's the wrong kind of humor.
That's just bad.
My God. I mean that I completely agree.
On a much lighter note, a rare job by the Undertaker.
And you know what? And you may agree with me, you may not. But here's what I thought, and this is a note that I made because it was a decent match.
It's okay.
I'm gonna pose this as a thought to you. I would have rather had that as the WrestleMania main event than Undertaker Sid. Wouldn't you have rather had Taker Vader?
Yeah, you know, Vader kind of had gotten hosed.
He'd been devalued.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Kyle. If they hadn't devalued him over the previous 6 months, don't you agree it would have been a better...
Paul Bearer becomes Vader's manager here.
Yes.
Remember that after the whole thing? So
exactly. It was weird because it was a mostly kind of clean job by Undertaker.
Yeah, I had forgotten that this match even took place. I watched it, and I didn't...
Me too.
I had forgotten the Undertaker lost. I was stunned.
And the Undertaker's like having to choke slam the ref to get his heat back.
I was shocked by that.
I was shocked as well. I don't have anything else from the undercard. I think that was like about it. That was, I think we already mentioned that as far as the championship match and everything that happened with with Sean and Sid. Yeah, we started with on that.
Started with that. Excuse me for not going according to your notes. Yes, yes, we spent a great deal of time. I don't know. Am I talking to myself here? Yes, we spent a great deal of time. HBK said
we did. Yeah, it's this was an interesting progression. We started with that, which was like the last match on the card, and worked our way almost completely backwards. This was the.
I like doing that. Let's start with the big stuff.
This is abstract art doing it this way. I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. I think things will be a lot cleaner the next year because after all these years, the down years and and then these Monday Night War years of being kind of having to swallow their pride, being neck and neck with WCW, and then here falling behind.
Yep.
We're about to experience the Attitude Era.
Yep.
And the comeback is on, starting in '98. And the pieces are in place. All of a sudden, you look at it. Whereas in '97, you're like, what were they thinking at this period? Was there no long-term vision at all? And there really wasn't. '98, we see a long-term vision set, and better times are on the horizon.
'98 was awesome. You're going to hear me go full fanboy. You got that to look forward to.
As we bring the show to a close, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, all Clear Channel affiliates, TNT, TBS, USA, UPN, Deadspin.com, YouTube.com, YTMND.com, MySpace.com, various blogs, Fox News, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, IamBoard.com, Billboard.com, Google.com, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN News, ESPN Classic, NBA TV, NFL Network, Sports Time Ohio, Athlon Magazine, Comedy Central, Cartoon Network, The Boomerang Channel, QVC, BET, The Spice Channel, Steno Notebooks, Manwich, Papermate Office Supplies, waitresses, strippers, bartenders, garbage men, janitors, microwave popcorn, the writers of The Office, Scrubs, Entourage, My Name is Earl, Oz, Metalocalypse and the Boondocks, Aquafina, and the Periodic Table of Elements.